Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today we are featuring this. This comes from McFarlane Toys and their DC Multiverse line. We have the Demon. Okay, so here's the Demon. He's also known as the character Etrigan, and he's from the DC universe. I purchased this figure, I want to say maybe a week ago, or maybe less than that. It's just now that I'm getting around to reviewing it. Pretty excited to check this guy out. He pretty much embodies what I've been feeling the last few months when it comes to the DC Multiverse line. Like, I really felt this way when we got like Dr. Fate and Gorilla Grodd. It's like we're finally getting characters that aren't related to like Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman. We're looking well beyond the DC trinity of superheroes, and we're finally filling out the DC universe, very much so, with some other new characters in the lineup. And the Demon, I think, is a great representation of that. I think, if you've been collecting the McFarlane DC Multiverse line since the beginning, even though the quality of the toys and action figures have been really high the last, almost 2 years now, it's just been a really long wait until we started really branching off and getting these other characters that aren't Batman, that aren't Superman, and it's really exciting, especially with all the social media reveals that McFarlane does every so often. It's very cool and refreshing to see that we're getting, all these different heroes and villains that aren't necessarily related to like the Batman family of characters or the Superman family of characters. Etrigan the Demon, he's a very awesome character that can stand on his own. And it's just really awesome that we're getting such a very unique and incredibly detailed action figure like this. Okay, so let's get this review started. So first off, the package design is pretty much what you expect from the DC Multiverse. It's that very plain black, blue, and white rectangular box. We have the Demon. This is recommended for ages 12 and up. And I purchased this figure at, I want to say, one of my local Targets. I was on my way home from work, and I made a run to the toy aisle while doing some groceries, and I saw this guy. And I was really excited because, like I said, I really wanted other characters that weren't Batman or Superman. On the back of the package, we have some fig photography here. We have a nice illustration, or nice photograph of the actual toy. Here's Etrigan the Demon. And I kind of mentioned this in some of my previous videos that I really preferred it much more when McFarlane, on the back of their DC Multiverse line, when instead of having this, photo of the actual action figure, I preferred it much more when they actually pulled artwork from the comic books. But according to one of my viewers, he gave me the explanation why they don't offer the comic book illustrations anymore. He said it was because like a lot of comic book artists, especially over the last few years, rightfully so, they feel that they're entitled to like compensation anytime their artwork is used. Especially like, when they create artworks, normally in the context of, their job creating it for the comic book. But when their artwork's pulled from the comic books and used in other things such as marketing and advertising and, package design, most of the time these artists, they don't get any financial compensation for that. So, I think that's, DC and McFarlane's way of protecting themselves is, they just rather use in-house photography of the toys themselves and pulling artwork from the comic books. Because if they do, then, they run the risk of like legal, trouble. So, that's what I've been told. And I remember hearing similar stories, whether or not that's 100% true, I can't confirm it, but I do remember hearing similar instances of that. It's unfortunate because I do prefer the actual comic book illustration as opposed to seeing this photo of the action figure. Like, it's cool that, this is a very nice, photo. It's well composed, it's well lit, and, nice character pose and everything. But at the same time, it's nice when you actually pull from the actual source material and give you a visual representation of what the character originally looked like. And for me, this feels redundant because, you know, we have the action figure right here in front of us. So then seeing a photo of it, this seems kind of redundant. But it is what it is. So let's move on. So yeah, we're looking at the demon, and this demon is actually pulled from Demon Knights, and we'll talk about that in a second. Some other characters in this wave include the Flash. This is Hot Pursuit Flash. This is the one in the white, silver, and black. We have we have Red Hood Unmasked. So we have the Jason Todd head on this figure. We have Batwoman. I saw this figure at the store the other day. From a distance, I thought it was Batman Beyond, but it's actually Batwoman. We have Dr. Fate, which I reviewed, and that figure looks amazing. And I've also reviewed Superman, the metal Superman. That's a cool figure also. So yeah, we're going to take a look at Etrigan the Demon. As I've said in previous videos, I kind of wish they'd at least give you a bio of the character, just because there are a lot of action figure and toy collectors out there that, you know, they strictly collect the toys because they love action figures, and it'd be nice that, you know, they might not have a lot of information coming in knowing about this dude, but it would have been helpful if they at least listed a small bio so you know who the demon is. And he's a very colorful character. If you're familiar with the demon, you know, he speaks in rhymes. He's kind of a poet. It's very it's very interesting because, you know, he's kind of this hellish looking character. But yeah, so let's get started. And unbox this guy. Alright, first impressions of the action figure while still in the tray. It looks amazing. So, like Dr. Fate, this is one of those figures that I was really excited about when I first saw photos for it. Just because it looks so radically different than the other figures we've gotten in the past. He kind of really breaks that mold of like what you expect like a superhero to look like. He's not, you know, necessarily wearing that tight spandex. I mean, this guy is the complete opposite. He's like covered in like this crazy armor, and he has, you know, these spiked gauntlets, these like really detailed pauldrons on his shoulder. He has this incredible detailed breastplate. He has a nice cape with these giant lapels. It's a really cool looking figure. If I have any complaints with this figure, I think it's more from the costume design. Like, even though I'm excited by the fact that this looks very different than the traditional superhero where he's, you know, in the spandex looking costume, I'm very attached to the original demon. So I mean, I sound like a hypocrite because one second I'm talking about how detailed this knight armor is and how much I love it, but at the same time, you know, I kind of miss the spandex stuff. But then a second ago I said I'm tired of the spandex stuff. I think it's not necessarily the old spandex costume I really liked, but I really preferred the original color scheme of the demon. Now, this isn't his first appearance, but this is one of his ongoing series from back in the day, the first issue. But his previous incarnations looked very similar to this still. I believe the color scheme was still kind of the same. But I think over the years, maybe the interpretation of his face might have changed a little. But he's always had that demonic face and those crazy like finned ears. But this color scheme is what I kind of grew up on with the demon. The blue cape, the red, and the yellow. You know, there's a lot of use of warm, hot colors here because, you know, he's the demon. He's from like the bowels of hell. Of course, he's going to be warm colored. Whereas this demon here, he's based off of Demon Knights, and Demon Knights came out, I want to say maybe 7 to 8 years ago by now. It's part of DC's New 52 initiative. So back in the day, DC, they kind of wanted to like streamline their continuity. They knew that they were getting more fans and eyes on them. and they wanted to make the comic books a little bit more accessible. So what they did is that, just like a lot of comic book companies do, they'll try resetting their universe, you know, so it's more beginner friendly. So they did the New 52, you know, everyone kind of had like a reset on their origin story. Stuff was streamlined and simplified. And the Demon, he was given a new look, and he was part of the Demon Knights. So this is the costume that this figure is based off of. And as you can see here, they did a pretty close job of trying to recreate it. Although this one seems like it has more color in parts of the armor than this one. You know, if you look here, his shoulder pads has like some red trim on it, whereas here it's kind of absent of the red trim. Likewise, some of these embossed details on his breastplate are colored red in the original source material, as are with the boots here also. But in terms of the sculpting and the likeness, they do a really good job of just taking this and translating it into a three-dimensional action figure. Even his sword here is identical. So yeah, if you were like me and you were curious about this version of the figure when it was first announced, this version of the Demon is based off one of the more modern renditions of the character, which is this guy here. Like I said though, I'm really partial to the original design, but I do like the fact that this character's design breaks the mold of the, you know, the plain spandex and stuff. And I'm gonna say it now. If I was a betting man, I would say it's gonna be inevitable that we're gonna get this figure again as a repaint, and possibly with a new head, but he'll come in the original Demon colors. So I kind of really feel that at some point in time, we're going to get a repaint of this. Because, I mean, we're seeing it already. You know, it's like with that Flash Hot Pursuit. That's a repaint of a previous figure. We've gotten a bunch of repaints with Batman already. And with a character that's this finely detailed and sculpted, you know, McFarlane Toys probably spent a lot of money on just the tooling of the toy. And I wouldn't blame them for wanting to reuse this mold again. But yeah, if you've passed on this figure, I wouldn't sweat it too much, just because, you know, I have a feeling that, you know, probably within 6 months we'll get a repaint and it'll be this color scheme here. So if you're more of a traditionalist, and if you're lucky, we'll probably get this dude, and then you can like get that guy, and you'll feel a little bit more at home with the more traditional Demon. But that's just me hypothesizing. I don't know if that's going to be the case. So like most DC figs by McFarlane, we get a trading card, which is a nice bonus, and we also get a character stand for the figure. All right, let's get this guy out of here. Okay, we have a really, really nice action figure in hand right now. So here's the Demon. Here's his cool looking sword. And like most DC Multiverse figs, this guy kind of falls in at about... this guy's about 7.5 inches tall. I'm not sure if that's taller than other figures. Let me grab another DC fig real quick. Here is John Stewart, and if I had to guess, This guy's about, I think this guy's about 7 inches tall, maybe 7 1/4. So I know I could just take this figure out. I'm being lazy. Yeah, it looks like the demon here might be like 1/4 of an inch taller than John Stewart. So you might be looking at a slightly taller figure than some of the other action figures, which is nice. Okay, let's take a look at the sculpting on this guy. Alright, so like I said, the one thing I do like about this costume, even though it's not based off the traditional demon costume, is the fact that it kind of breaks the mold and it kind of strays away from being like the spandex superhero. If you're a big fan of like fantasy and knights, I think this is a great action figure. The detail and the sculpting is superb, as always. It's what you really come to expect from McFarlane. Alright, so the light's coming off a little bright on his face. So it's kind of hard to catch all the detail. He's a very imposing character, for one thing. And as you can see, there's a nice texture sculpted on the lapels around his head. He has, alright, so I'm not sure if the camera's going to catch this, but his eyes are red, and he has a lot of like black eyeliner around it. He has a very solemn expression. For a character that rhymes a lot, I think part of me would have appreciated maybe a little bit more expressive face. Because even though it looks like the demon, I don't feel like the expression on the face really captures the essence and personality of the character. The cape is nice. It's kind of unusual for me to like handle this figure and have a figure where their cape is a little bit shorter. Because a lot of times, a lot of these superheroes nowadays, especially with the action figures, their capes come down, really low, almost past their ankles. Whereas this guy's cape, it seems like it's a decent length. It's not too short, it's not too long, it's just right. And again, very lifelike folds and textures. It's really, really well done. The shoulder pads here is made of a soft rubbery plastic, and it looks like it might be attached to the cape, I think. Yeah, so the shoulder pads here, it's a separate piece, and it looks like it's glued to this piece that's attached onto the cape. It's the same on both sides. And the cape's pegged into the back here. It might be glued in. I don't think it could be removed. And on the front, it looks like the cape's pegged into 2 points in the chest, right here and here. His lower torso, he has I'm not sure if this belt's attached or not. Alright, so my belt, it's loosely, alright, my belt's kind of floating around, and as I pried it up, I actually partially ripped the glue off of it. So this lower flap piece here and the belt, at least on mine, was glued very loosely in 2 points, right there and right there. And it didn't take a whole lot of work. All I had to do was just kind of lift it a little, and it kind of came off of the scale mail right there. And the scale mail is interesting because on the lower torso, there's 2 sockets there, and then there's 2 very short pegs here and here. So I'm guessing initially these were supposed to plug into that, but the pegs are so short that it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't bother me all that much, but depending on how you pose the figure, you get this big gap between his stomach and his lower waist. So it kind of also gives you a clear view of the mechanism inside. But you can just kind of get the, if you could raise the belt a little higher, you can kind of close that gap and cover it up. But at the same time, so like I said, my piece here was lightly glued on, but the glue just kind of flaked off as soon as I moved it. The scale mail, it's really well done. So the scale mail is all sculpted in. It's not like, it's all sculpted in so you can actually feel it. It's like a relief. It's like embossed, detailed. It's not, these aren't lines that are scribed into it. So there is actually a nice scaly texture to it. In terms of the sculpting, like a lot of the McFarlane stuff, the sculpting is top notch. You know, the sculpting alone is easily a 9 or 10. Now let's take a look at the articulation. So the articulation, this guy's head looks left and right. You can look up. You can kind of look down. Arm-wise, his arms could go out like this. He only has single jointed elbows, so you're not gonna get a whole lot of range of movement with just the one pin. So the range of movement is very limited. You know, you're looking at it right here. Like if you wanted to, he can't flex double by. His arms aren't gonna go in all the way, which is kind of unfortunate. Now, I've said this before with some action figures, regardless of who makes them, whether it's whether it's McFarlane or Hasbro or Mattel, you know, they might give you all the articulation in the world, but if the range of motion isn't there, it's almost kind of pointless. And, you know, that's kind of the case here. You know, he has nice articulation. You know, he's granted the elbow bend, but it's not doing a whole lot. But he does have elbow swivel to make up for the fact that there's no bicep swivel. So there's an elbow swivel, no bicep swivel. His arms can go out. The nice thing with this being rubbery and attached to the cape is that it's not going to hinder the movement all that much. So he could go up until he hits this thing here, and he could go out. I believe he might have that. Yeah, he has that cool ball socket butterfly joint that McFarlane toys have. So if you look here, this is kind of like a giant ball and socket. So I think that's really well done. I like that a lot more than the butterfly joints that we get with the Marvel Legends figures. Because this butterfly joint, it's not even a butterfly joint. It's like I said, it's like a separate ball in a giant socket. And the arm itself is a ball and socket. So you're getting actually two ball and sockets. But this one allows movement to go inward, outward, and you can even go upward and downward. So that's nice. In terms of an ab crunch, all right, it looks like it's broken right under the breast line, but because of the body armor here, he's only going to crunch so much. So this was him on a profile view at a neutral position. His ab crunch moving forward would only be this. It's not a lot. He could come further down if you rely on the lower waist articulation. And the lower waist, as I pointed out before, looks like it's a ball joint. So there's the peg and the ball and socket exposed. So he does have a waist swivel. It's kind of tight on my figure. It is there though, but I don't want to risk. I don't want to say I risk breaking it, but all right, there you go. Yeah, so it was just a little tight. And then when you turn it, you can actually feel the indents also. So there's the neutral position. You can turn it a little, then it hits another indent. It's at almost 90. And there's this belt. And it's like, we're seeing this a lot more in action figures. A lot of the McFarlane toys have this, and some of the G.I. Joe Classifieds. So the lower crotch piece, instead of being a solid piece of plastic, it's actually like this rubbery material, this very soft plastic. It's almost like I always call it like a rubber diaper. And all it does is, it's actually just hiding, if I could pull this down, maybe not. It's just hiding the inside mechanism, so you can kind of see all the joints and mechanisms that allow his legs to move inside. as I've stated before, I'm kind of reserved about this new stuff just because, over time I have a feeling that, these weird rubbery soft plastics, there's a chance that they might become brittle or dehydrated over time, and then they might just start to crumble. And he has no thigh cut. Oh, I take it back. All right, so he has no thigh cut, but he does have a lot of... I actually think this might be better than a thigh cut. So, it looks like it's another peg into socket type deal. So his leg at the thigh can allow for full 360 rotation, which is insane. And I don't think that'd be possible if the lower waist or this lower torso part was a solid piece. Since it's more of like a rubbery covering, it's not going to hinder the movement of this. So if you want to get nuts with it, go ahead. They could rotate around full 360 degrees. In terms of his knees, double jointed knees. The range of motion should be all right, I'm guessing. Yeah, decent range of motion on the double jointed knees. As you can see, he has bend at his foot also. And as far as ankle articulation, it's kind of hindered because there's this armored piece above his foot. So you're not going to get a whole lot of motion moving forward or back, if any. But it will rotate, at least. His wrists rotate, and... Alright, so I'm not too fond of some of the figures that come out from McFarlane where you can see, like, the ball joint at the wrist. But this one works for me just because his bracer here covers up that gap, so it makes up for it. So in terms of the articulation with his wrist, there is some play and movement here, which works because the guy does wield a sword, and the sword's really nice, as you can see here. Very uniquely shaped. Let's get it in hand. And okay, I'm kind of curious because as I'm handling the figure, I'm looking at the pose they have here, and I'm curious if I can recreate it, because at least with my figure, it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like the range of motion is as articulated as it looks here, because on this photograph here, you could clearly see that he could go hand over hand, whereas on mine, I'm trying to see if I could actually recreate that. Because on mine, the elbow will only bend so far. So I'm not sure if it's this case of the photography or what, but... Alright, now his hand kind of popped off. Alright, so I'm having difficulty trying to recreate this pose with his hand over hand, because my figure, his arm doesn't want to bend in all the way, like this one here. So I'm kind of wondering if they're cheating in the photograph. Unless I'm just doing something wrong. Yeah, I can't get him in this pose properly. Yeah, my elbows don't want to bend as far as these here. So I'm kind of curious if in the photography, if they're actually cheating a little and pulling the forearm out of the socket just to allow for a further range of movement, because as you can see here, I'm having a lot of difficulty trying to recreate this pose here, which is unfortunate. Okay, with that being said, this video is running a little bit long. I apologize if I kind of ramble sometimes. My head isn't always on straight, to be honest, when I review some of these things. Alright, so real quick too, I'm not sure what's going on here with his boot. It's like rotating. Alright, so his boot here is, it looks like it's just a rubbery sleeve placed over his calf muscle. So that's why it's spinning around like that. And it can ride up and down a little. Okay, let's talk numbers. So I paid, I believe, $19.99 for this figure. All right, so is this action figure worth it? In my opinion, yes. It's a really well done interpretation of the modern version of the Demon. If you're like me and you're very fond or you're very married to the original iconic look of the character where he's mostly in red and orange and yellow, this figure might be a pass, but at the same time, I don't think you can afford to do that just because the DC Multiverse is sorely in need of more characters beyond Batman and Superman. It's really well sculpted. Like I said, based on the sculpting alone, it's easy. It's an easy 9 to, a low 10. The articulation, even though all the articulation's there, the range of movement is very limited. So in terms of his articulation, he gets a checkpoint for having all the necessary articulation, but in terms of creating the poses you want, I'm gonna say a 7, a 6.5 to a 7. As I showed you earlier, I tried recreating that pose that was on the box, and I had hard enough time just trying to do that. If you can pull the pose off exactly as it is on the box, let me know, but I can't do it. The photograph had his forearm close to his torso, and his arms were clasped together like this. But every time I would do it, one hand would pop off. I can't get my elbow to bend as far as the one in the photograph. So it's just a little bit frustrating. But I think it's a very quality figure. I don't sound like I'm hating it on too much, and I know I sound like I'm like half crazy man because I'm saying conflicting things. I'm going back and forth on certain issues about this figure, but I do think it's a much needed figure in the line. It's really well done. It's really beautiful, and I definitely do think it's worth a purchase. I'm curious to see if we will get a repaint. Fingers crossed. I think we will. And if we do get a repaint, I'm really hoping it's more in the classic colors that we're very accustomed to with the Demon. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm going kind of nuts here. I'm tired. I've had a long work week. But yeah, I love these McFarlane toys. And yeah, don't take this the wrong way. It's like I said, I'm not hating on it. It's just that I think the longer I handle this figure, the more I'm finding things wrong with it, even though I do think it's a very beautiful display piece. And it really still exemplifies that high quality we expect from McFarlane toys. He's very much in the same league. If you've handled like the recent Dr. Fate figure and you're amazed by that, I think you'll be amazed by this one also. Like I said, I think I'm just being a little bit too nitpicky. But at the same time, if I can't recreate the pose that's on the box, I think that's justifiable. So wrapping this up, once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Get used to the fact that I ramble a lot and my videos always run really long. If you are a returning subscriber or a viewer, I thank you for all your likes and comments. I greatly appreciate all your support. And if you stuck it out until the end of this video, congratulations. You win the big prize, whatever that may be. So until the next video, take care of yourselves, be safe, collect a lot of action figures, and just enjoy your life. All right, I'll talk to you later. Later.